This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. It is time once again to do a little video on some viewer mail that was sent in. Before I get going real quick, I do want to mention one thing. I still have a few seats left in my next workshop that I'm doing. This will be in New York City, April 4th through 6th of 2025. It is called Dancer as Motif. I'm really excited about this. We're going to do it in New York. I'm bringing 3 dancers with me, as well as my co-teacher, who is a ballet dancer at the Texas Ballet Theater. Her name is Alexandra Light, and we're going to do a photography workshop on figure studies, specifically with dancers, and it's going to be really cool. So I will put a link in the show description if you want to know more. But for now, let's get to the mail. All right, so first up is this wonderful little book called 60. This comes to us from a gentleman named David Gavasheli. David encloses a note which reads, "Dear Mr. Forbes, last year I turned 60 and decided to compile what I consider to be my best works into one album, which is now in your hands. When creating my images, my goal was not merely to capture what I saw, but to convey how I saw it. As a professional designer working in an art company, I consider the camera another tool to my artistic toolbox alongside the pencil and pen. Although this album may not be the highest production quality due to financial constraints, I trust you to still be able to discern the ideas and the vision behind my photographs. Thank you in advance for taking the time to review my work. I would be deeply grateful if you could share your thoughts on my photographs. Sincerely, David." All right, David, first of all, this is fabulous. Second of all, I want to mention we have a rule here at the Art of Photography, which is never apologize for your work. You're a designer and you understand that financial constraints are what they are, and you have to do the best with what you have before you. And this is really awesome. Yes, I understand the paper could be of higher quality, etc., but the printing really looks good. I love the fact that you've done everything in black and white, and I think more importantly, than each individual photo you talked about a second ago, but what really impresses me about this body of work is that how you've done your pairings on here. Each layout, each spread makes sense. It's not over-designed. In fact, I love the way that you varied the scale on certain images up. Each image on one side of the page has a dialogue with an image on the other, and that continues that thread as you turn through the pages. It's really well done. Another thing I'm really impressed with is the contrast that you have in here. And I know there are some limitations with the paper, but you have a really wonderful sense of contrast as you go through this. Some things are very high key. They almost look infrared in some ways. And then you have others that are really dark, but I don't lose any of the detail and I don't swallow any of the important parts of the image. And I think it's really nicely done. Another thing that I love is that you have this visual dialogue here that sometimes deals with, if we're going to compare it to language, it would be like synonyms. You have 2 objects, like on this page, you have the leaf on one side and the shell on the other, both of very shallow depth of field. They're not the same subject, and the subject almost doesn't matter because they work so well together, they rhyme in essence. So it's 2 different things that have the same visual look to them, and I really like how you've approached that as you go through this book. This is really nicely done, as I keep mentioning, and if you guys are interested, I will link up to David's work below in the show description. I always do, so please support your fellow colleagues. Happy birthday, congrats on turning 60, and I think this is a really well done book, and I really appreciate you sharing with me. So thank you, David. You should be very proud, my man. So next up is this little square book called 1 by 1. This comes to us from Ian Marsh. This is 1 by 1 Volume 2. Ian has a very small and brief note which reads, "Dear Ted, your zine reviews have inspired me to make some of my own. Many thanks. I hope you enjoy this zine. Whether or not you give feedback on the channel, thanks, Ian." Ian, I will give you some feedback on here. I think this is really nicely done. One thing I want to point out to you guys is he enclosed this little Polaroid on the back, which is a nice handmade touch there. I love it. Anyway, what Ian does in this book is he is dealing with grids, and particularly the square format. And so you have a squares within a square. So we have 9 images on each, and I think it's really interesting how these all relate to each other. I love the fact that it's in black and white, and I love the language and the dialogue that go through each one of these little collages that you've got in here. They're little macro images at times. You'll see a record, a tennis ball, and it almost doesn't matter because the way you perceive these when you look through here is of the image as a whole. And I think this is a really interesting experiment. It's a great idea for a zine. And you mentioned that this is Volume 2. I would actually be interested in seeing Volume 1. And I think the possibilities are pretty much limitless on what you can explore with this. I think one thing that I would try to consider doing maybe a little bit is maybe varying this up. You've got these grids of 9 images each. It might be cool to see one of 4, or just kind of 2 split sometimes, or maybe you find a way to split it so you've got 3, one split in half and the other split horizontally versus vertically, something like that, to give it a little more depth and body. But I really don't have a problem with what's in here. I think the subject matter is wonderful. I love what you're doing. It's very design-like and really nicely done, Ian. So thank you very much for sending. All right, so next up we've got some pinhole images that are fantastic, as well as this joyful little book called Ode to a Cemetery. But first, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor today, who are the awesome folks over at Squarespace.
How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit Get Started. You can start by using Squarespace Blueprint AI and SEO tools, which will give you an impressive website in no time. Something unique because, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like prints, books, maybe you make a zine? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from. Just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Flexible payments allow you to make the checkout process absolutely seamless when you sell products or services. You can accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, you can offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
Okay, so next up is this little book, which comes to us from Barry Duggan. This is called Natura Obscura. This is a book of pinhole images, and I'm going to read you a little Barry's letter, which reads, "Hi Ted, I hope you are well. When I was 12 years old, I purchased a DIY pinhole photography kit. The camera itself was made from black cardboard, and the kit included development chemicals and trays. It was my first of many cameras. It introduced me to a new world of light, process, and creativity. Although the images I made are long gone, it sparked a lifelong passion for photography. I am now 43 years old, and I work as a photographer. All of my professional work is digital-based, but in my spare time, I love nothing more than experimenting with alternative film cameras and techniques. Over the last few years, I've returned to pinhole photography. I especially love the experience of using a pinhole camera whilst being out in nature, and I decided to make a zine of recent pinhole images that I made. This is my first zine, and I really enjoyed making it. I would love to share it with you. I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel. Keep up the great work. All the best, Barry." Barry, this is wonderful, and it actually really strikes a chord with me because I'm a huge fan of pinhole photography. I haven't done it myself in a while, but like the stuff that you're talking about here really encapsulates all the reasons that I was really into it at one point. I think that, and man, you're actually kind of inspiring me to want to get back to it because all the things that we deal with in cameras these days, especially in the digital age, is this obsession with the perfect image and the quest for sharpness and color rendition and all the things that really don't have much to do with making an interesting image. And I love that the pinhole camera really peels all that back. It forces you to deal with something that in theory should be ultra sharp, but in reality is not. It's got all its own blemishes, but it creates such a really interesting aesthetic. And I think you brought that out here. I love the fact that you're not afraid to aim this into the sun at times. And it just really has a cool feel to it. I think what you're doing here is really lovely. You've done a great job of mixing color and black and white. I think some of my favorites in here are these long panoramic images that you've got where you've got kind of this atmosphere going with the water at the end of this walkway. Really nicely done. I just love that look of pinhole where you have everything that's sharp yet it's still soft at the same time. Anyway, this is a wonderful little collection of images from Ireland. And Barry, I just want to see more of it. I want to see what other directions you can take this in. And I love the fact that you kind of come back to the pinhole as a sort of therapy from the day-to-day work as a professional photographer. Anyway, I will link up to Barry's work below, so you guys be sure and check him out. All right, this next book is a wonderful book that comes to us from Bethany Jacobsen. This is called Ode to a Cemetery. Bethany enclosed a note which reads, "Dear Ted, I started to watch your YouTube channel during the pandemic, It is such a pleasure to witness your passion. I love the artist series, and as a result, was introduced to the work of Keith Carter and subsequently took a workshop with him in Santa Fe in 2021. Enclosed is my first photography book, Ode to a Cemetery, which is an homage to Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, just published by Himer Verlag, with text by poet Cole Swinson. I live across the street and began to walk and photograph its 478 acres over a decade ago. I had always wanted to create a photography book, but never expected it to be about one of the first rural cemeteries in America. It took 2 years to put together, and I raised funds via crowdfunding, a grant, and my own savings. I thought you might enjoy the meditative approach to the subject of morality, nature, and solitude. There are a few reviews which I put below. Thanks so much for your time, and I look forward to your thoughts. Best regards, Bethany. Okay, Bethany, this is really nicely done, and congratulations on getting this finished and published. I know this is a very ambitious undertaking. It's a huge cemetery, I understand, and I think the way that you've approached it, you have a wide range of the subject matter that you're doing. I don't know if you worked with Keith Carter on this book or not, but a couple things that I want to point out, and this is just my personal observation, is that I think that, for one, I think this book is really well done. You cover a wide range. I think it would be interesting to see you start tackling a couple of these things, and you probably know you're doing this, but I want to point them out anyway. I'd like to see these done individually. I'll come back to how you could possibly look at doing that in the future, but I think you have more material that you could work with on this. First of all, you begin the book with a series of abstracts here that I think are really interesting, and then you go into color as well. And then there's a lot of images that are kind of the cemetery, which I understand you need some context in here. I don't think they're quite as strong, but then you go into doing things like this with the stained glass, where I'm getting in here and I'm seeing something that is not quite as abstract as what you started, but it's a different style where you're really digging in and starting to show things. I think things with these colors, really high contrast with the reds, are really interesting as well. And then the most interesting thing that you do here is when I get into the back of this book, you've got a series that's called Works on Paper, and you have these images that are actually reproductions of artworks that you're doing of photographs on paper, and I would really love to see more of this. And I know that you have a wide range encapsulated in one book, and I'm not discounting that at all. I think it's really well done. What I would like to see you do moving forward is take one of these and really explore it, one of these styles that you're working with. Maybe you could do a series of zines even that kind of start to approach those bodies of work and what you're doing. Anyway, you've got a wide range to what it is that you're doing, and I would love to see it kind of condensed down into one style or one aesthetic that you're starting to look at, but I think this is really nicely done. And again, congratulations on getting it done. It's a big undertaking. So anyway, Bethany, I really appreciate it. Thank you for sending. Some excellent work submitted today. And just as a reminder, I put links to everybody in the show description, so make sure you check out their websites and support your local colleagues. A lot of these zines and books are for sale. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I will catch you guys in the next video. Until then, later.